My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 51 of Duck Dogs. I'm your host, Josh Miller, and I appreciate you taking another week to spend with me talking ducks and dogs. And actually, on this episode, we're going to talk some upland in here as well. So kind of a nice little twist. And I have my favorite person here with me in my wife, Whitney. And she's going to go over a number of things. She's going to go over her upland season a little bit. She's going to go over, she's had a lot of puppies go home here over the last few months. So she's going to kind of recap that for us. And she actually has some questions for me that I am not prepared for. So we'll see how this goes. But a big thank you to Whitney for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
It's always it's a little awkward when we do this just because obviously we're with each other every day. So this is a little different than, when Brett comes on or something like that. But it's always fun. We enjoy this. So before we get into this, what I want to do first off is I should probably thank some sponsors because this show cannot and does not work without the sponsors. So thank you to Eukanuba. Eukanuba is a presenting sponsor of this podcast. Eukanuba, we feed the premium performance Sport 3020 blend. And I cannot say enough good things about this food. Really the big one being is that we just finished a grueling season. Okay, so we had 88 days that we're in the field waterfowl hunting. 88 days. That's a long time. That's a lot of elements. That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of everything. Our dogs look fantastic as it sits today versus what they had in years past. I mean, in years past, I was feeding, 2, 3, sometimes almost 4 times the amount of food that they would normally eat just to try to keep weight on them, just to try to keep their energy going and kind of push through the end of the season. And I did not have to do that, this year. I didn't have to do it last year when they were on Eukanuba. So there are things like that I think speak volumes. And I think that that anyone that's looking for a high-quality premium food to have your four-legged hunting partner on, I would highly, highly suggest it. And that's a very authentic and genuine review. So thank you to Eukanuba. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply, it is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs. And one thing that I love about Gun Dog Supply is they're one of the companies that we have the pleasure of spending a lot of time around as we go through the hunting season. And here's what I want to tell you about Gun Dog Supply, because I haven't really talked about this much. So everybody knows Steve Snell. Steve is a big bird hunter. Actually, Steve and Whitney get along really well because they both love upland hunting so much, and they always talk about quail and pheasants and all that. And Rob, who is Steve's brother, is actually kind of the what do I want to call it, the techie guy of the two. He's the one that helps run the website. He's a fantastic photographer, like really, really good photographer. And here's what I think is so special about Rob. So Rob travels and hunts with me, I'd say a fair amount. This year maybe not so much because they were so busy at work. But I'd say last year he probably hunted, I would say 40-ish days with me. So half my season with me. And he's always I'm usually the first one up, but he's always the second one up. He's always in a great attitude. He's always chipper and energetic. He always is wanting to go. He always has that infectious personality. And he has never once pulled the trigger. It's all about taking photos. It's all about watching the dogs work. It's all about watching the ducks. And I have a very deep appreciation, for people that are like that. And so, that just is kind of kudos to, just Rob. Yeah, and it's certainly not because he's adverse to hunting. He owns Gun Dog Supply. It's just that is, the photos are his thing. And he is literally world class. I mean, it is, if you guys follow Riverstone Kennels on social, he does a lot of the really, really awesome images. And here's what's great about his images. They are all in the moment. It's not set up. It's not staged. It's not, photoshopped in there. I mean, it's in the moment. I mean, it's incredible. He is incredible. Both he and his brother Steve are great people, and we just love working with great people. So go check them out. I know there was a really long testimonial there too, but www.gundogsupply.com. So as we get going here, I want to get into upland season with Whitney. I want to get into puppies with Whitney. But the first thing I want to do is I want to recap the end of my waterfowl season, because I had a unique and very strong finish to the season. And I want to talk a little bit about it, because it was really neat for me as I kind of went through, this last little bit. So I went down to my duck camp in Arkansas and just had an absolute blast. And, it had, of course, I had to do with the birds. Of course, I had to do with the dogs. Had to do with the elements, because we had a lot that we had to kind of conquer. But what made it so special for me is that I was by myself most of the hunts. Why is that important to me? Why is that special to me? I believe these solo hunts tend to remind you why you're there. It allows you to slow down. It allows you to do the things that you are wanting to do. It allows you to step back and do things at your time. And so let me kind of break down these hunts for me. So Arkansas was very interesting in the last 10 to 14 days of the season. And the reason being is because it got so cold. It was in the teens for probably at least 7 of those last 14 days. I mean, it was really, really cold. And so what happened was all the fields froze, all the water in the woods froze, and you were really limited to the rivers. The rivers stayed open, all the birds congregated in those river systems, and it made it to where not only all the ducks, but all the hunters flocked to the rivers. Now, originally, I was kind of frustrated with the situation, because I as of right now don't have a boat, so I was handcuffed. I couldn't get on the river. I couldn't get to where I needed to be to have successful hunts. So I sat a day or two out. I tried to scout. Of course, everything was on the river, so there just wasn't a whole lot that I could do. And if you don't know Arkansas, it's very different from a lot of places. In the Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North, South Dakota, it's no big deal. You just put on a bunch of miles in your truck, you scout, you find where they're feeding, you knock on the door, get permission, and you go hunt them where they are. The difference in Arkansas is that everything is money. Everything is leased. Everything is tied up. So there's just not the opportunity to do that. And so you have, for us, we have our places that we lease. Luckily, I have a phenomenal relationship with the farmer that I lease from, that if I find birds in another one of his fields, he's always great about, letting me get on those fields. And so, he's been a real blessing with that. But what happens, in a situation like this is everybody goes to these, public, launches, and they put in the river and they go hunt the river. So for example, where my woods is, I am one of few private properties that border a 7,000 acre WMA that has a very significant river flowing through it. There is a launch, there's a number of launches on this WMA. There's a launch that is closest to us that I'll check every once in a while just to see, what's all going on there. And there, usually is like 8 to 12, maybe 15, is probably 8 to 15, trucks there on a regular basis, hunting, especially on the weekends. There was one day that I went into my woods and I could see nothing, like way off in the distance. It looked like a complete string of red lights, which that's what it was. It was a string of red taillights, all waiting to get in and put in on the river. There was 58 trucks in the launch that day. 58. I mean, that's crazy.
That's really crazy.
That's crazy. And so it just shows you how everyone was so limited and everybody got handcuffed into they can't hunt the way that they normally do. So if you want to hunt, you only have one option. So it really congregated everybody. So after a couple days of trying to figure out how I'm going to make something work, I decided that I'm just going to go start breaking ice. I'm going to break ice every day. And so every day, every morning, I'd go out, or for 2 mornings in a row, I should say, I'd go out and I had, a chisel and I had my boots, and I would just stomp and I would, crack, and I would, break up the ice, and I would break up this hole. And then what was more difficult than actually breaking the ice was then trying to get all the ice out of the hole so that it didn't just refreeze in right away, get all that ice out of there. And then as the days would warm up to usually about 30 to 35, hoping that would stay open enough that in the morning, I do it again in the afternoon, and I come back again in the morning. Hopefully it was only skim ice, so then I could, very quickly open that hole back up. But what happened was I found that these birds were getting so pressured on the river that as they looked elsewhere for somewhere to sit down, there was nowhere else except for me. And so I became a magnet. And so it was really fun just to kind of put in all that work and make it happen, right? The other thing that was really fun for me is that before this happened, the ice was really thick. And then we got a day that it got up to 60, and it really kind of helped knock some of that down. I mean, it was so thick, I couldn't break through it. And so on that day, what I ended up doing is I walked into the WMA. So, there's a property line. I just crossed the property line. I'm in the WMA. I'm in public property. So I walked on the ice until I started breaking through. And the idea that I had was there had to be somewhere, if I just kept walking towards the river, there had to be somewhere that there was enough current that was keeping an area open. And when I found it, my thought is that everyone else coming off the river probably wouldn't be able to get to it, which would leave, I was hoping, this honey hole that nobody could get to. And so I was walking back in the WMA, and I'm looking, and I'm completely blind in here, right? Like I've got my Onyx, map. I know where I'm at, but I don't know, if I break through this ice, how deep is it going to be, which was a definite concern being by myself. I didn't know if I was going to find anything. And then, I was sweating like crazy, just as you naturally do. So I was way back in this WMA. I stopped to take a breather because at this point I'm breaking ice, and I'm probably like thigh, deep, breaking ice. And thigh deep was like the worst spot for there to be ice, because then I got to get my knees up that high to then break the next piece. And it was literally breaking ice every single step. So I'm sweating, I'm panting, trying to catch my breath. And so I stop for a minute and just kind of, take a breather. And all of a sudden off in the distance, I hear, which of course perks my ears up. And I'm like, huh. So I stand there for another 5 minutes or so. And all of a sudden, it's like, all right. So I keep breaking ice in that direction, crunch, crunch, crunch. I mean, it was exhausting. Get back towards where I'm, hearing this come from, and I start seeing mallards break the trees going down. So now I'm looking at my map. I know exactly where they are. I was pumped up. I was ecstatic. I'm marking on my map. And then what I tried to do is I tried to break ice very deliberately all the way back, which all the way back, I mean, I'm not even going to guess how long it was. It was a long ways. It felt like 5 miles. It certainly wasn't, but it felt like 5 miles. But it took me, all afternoon into the night. I got back to the truck after dark to break ice and get all the way back there. So I get back and had a buddy that was going to go out with me, and this was Brett. And we just trudged out there, and we had a great hunt. But it's hunts like that they really make me appreciate what we're doing, right? Like this is not, a canned hunt. This is not, we have a multi-million-dollar, lodge and property, and we're just very fortunate to be where we are. Right? This is work, and it's just rewarding. Like the 8 mallards we killed that morning might as well have been 88 because I just felt so happy, about the work that went into that. And I think that's ultimately what made me appreciate my solo hunts so much. When I say solo, I don't mean my dog solo. I mean just me by myself. So when I grew up duck hunting, that was what I did a lot of. It was just myself and Easton. And that's how I fell in love with doing this, is that I would, it was just me and him. We'd go out in Wisconsin. We would hope to kill a duck. And we were just happy as clams doing it. And when I was able to take a step back and have those hunts by myself, like I love the camaraderie, I love the big hunts, I love the friendships, I love the laughs that come with that. But there's something special about doing it just for you. Like I was telling Whitney about, I called Whitney after one of my hunts. I don't know if you remember, the phone call, but I was ecstatic because I was like, I was able to do what I wanted to do. So things slow down, right? So what I find is that I call the shots sooner when I have a group of guys. Why do I do that? Well, because I know if I let them go one more pass, they don't do it, it's going to be murmurs all down the blind. Oh, should have taken them there. Why didn't we shoot? Right? And so I call the shot sooner. When I'm by myself, I let those birds do the whole thing. Like just almost going to sit on the water before I shoot. Why do I do that? Because I like the show. I like watching them. I like seeing their body moving. I like seeing what they're going to do, right? That's what I enjoy. I get to do that when I'm by myself. I get to call how I want to call. If I want to experiment and, hail at certain times and be quiet at certain times and try different things, I can do that. Because if it doesn't work, I don't mess anything else up. It's just me. And then I get to work my dog, send my dog when I want to. There's just something peaceful about it. It should be peaceful all the time. And there's nothing to me more peaceful than being, specifically in the flooded timber. But when that sunrise comes up, there's nothing more peaceful. But when you are doing it, just you and your dog, I find that it is extremely rewarding. So what I would do is I would challenge anyone out there. If you haven't done that, or if you don't do that, do it for you. Do it for your dog. Do it for you need to have that time. I think you'd really, really appreciate it because I know that I did. So that was a quick little recap of the end of my season. We did fantastic. I loved my last hunt was just me and my boy Clyde. I don't know if you guys got to catch that on social or not, but I did a story around that. And, we went out and killed our birds, and it was just me and my oldest boy. And there's something special about that too. So great end of the season. We had a very good season. I wouldn't say it was spectacular, but I certainly wouldn't say it was poor. Last year was really, really hard. And so I would say it was a really solid season. I was really happy with that. So, anyways, enough about waterfowl. We talked about waterfowl enough. Whitney's here. She's been gracious enough to take the time to be with us. And what I want to talk about with Whitney is something that we don't talk often about here, which is something that I think a lot of you that are listening, partake in, which is upland hunting. And I know that I've talked about this quite a bit in the past, but there's this thought out there that I don't like upland hunting. I've talked about, that's not true. But Whitney loves it, and she spends a lot of time doing it. So tell us about your upland season. How did it go? What dogs did you have? Let's kind of talk over that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, first, I would really like to thank you for not telling me these stories about you breaking through the ice until I know that you are home, safe and sound, so I don't have to have a heart attack while you're gone. But anyways, my upland season, it was so much fun, and this was finally my first year in about the last 2 or 3 years that I've been really able to focus back on myself hunting and have the dogs with me. I had Purdy with me this year, and you were gracious enough to let me also have Bracken with me this year, which was really fun. We started out in South Dakota, and that was really kind of the first time that I myself had been on a hunting trip without you. So there were a lot of emotions myself for that. I didn't have my safety net there to help me along the way like you do. And it was just me performing with the dogs. And there can be a little bit of stress that comes with that, I feel like. And so it was great to have Purdy and Bracken with me. It was really fun to see the two of them kind of come out of their shell and all of us work together as a team in the field. And I did hunt both of them separate each hunt just because I wanted to be able to focus on how they were going to work, and I didn't want to have to worry about what the other one was going to do. So we took baby steps this season, which was good for all three of us. And out in South Dakota, Purdy was halfway through her pregnancy, which added a whole nother element of emotions to it. I wanted to make sure I was keeping her safe. And so she did not do as much hunting as Bracken, but it was great. And it was really fun to watch. We'll start out with Purdy. So she really surprised me because she has such a laid back personality in the house that I was kind of expecting that in the field. I expected her to stay in a little bit closer and not show as much as of excitement as she did in the field. And it was incredible to me to see how laid back she is in the field, and then to just get this like unbelievable excitement in the field. And so it was something I didn't expect from her. But it was really cool to see just that really big on and off switch that she has. Because, when we took her hunting in Kansas on dove, she had to be under control. And so we saw that very sweet, laid back personality on that hunt. So it was fun to watch her go from the dove hunt to now her being excited, quartering really well, staying in that 10 to 15 yards. And her and I almost have like this language between us that I don't even have to say anything to her. And she knows like almost the second that I would say, Purdy, just to kind of get her back to me, she would turn around and kind of have her little check-in times with me. And so it was really fun to watch her. Now, unfortunately, she was pregnant. She did have her litter of puppies, so she did miss about half of the upland season. But I thought we had a really good start, and I'm really excited to build off of it for next season.
So before you get too far down the road here, I have a couple questions that came up. So first off, you said that you were excited to see Purdy and how she was responding. So this was Purdy's first hunting season with you.
Pheasant hunting season, yes.
Right. And but you had been training with her over the summer.
Yes, I was training with her over the summer, but it was more of a controlled hunt. It was more of, I really needed to make sure that her and I had that obedience down. I needed to make sure that she was going to be under control because, you don't want to go into a pheasant field with a dog that is not 110% under control out of the pheasant field. So her and I focused more on creating that bond and, because we had imported her, and then I just really wanted to get that bond down with her before anything and then focus on the obedience. So it was a lot more of controlled training with her over the season before going into the hunting season, especially because her first hunt was the dove hunt. And
then let's clarify the dove hunt too, because for those of you that don't know, when we dove hunt, it is just like waterfowl hunting where the dogs are sitting at our side. They're being calm, quiet, under control. They'll be released on their name to retrieve, and then all that we expect is that there's out to the retrieve, hunt the area, pick that bird up, bring it back, deliver to hand, sit back down, right? So it's a very different style of hunting, but this is something that comes up oftentimes with people that do both, right? They are going to upland hunt, but they're also going to waterfowl hunt or dove hunt, or there's a number of things they could do there. And what my advice always is you do your waterfowl hunts first. You really keep them under control, because it's always easier, like you did. You loosen the reins, right? So you had her under control, you had her at your side, and then you loosen the reins and let her rein out. It's always easier to do that than have a dog that is go out in the field and then try to rein them back in. Because when you do it that way, that dog wants to go. Let's just say you start off your season with 4 or 5 upland hunts. Now all of a sudden you're going to rein that dog back and make them, especially a young dog that doesn't know the game. Now you're reining that dog back and having them sit at your side. Sometimes that's where the anxiousness comes from. you can actually create some vocalness or some whining because the dog is kind of stressed out because they're wanting to go. And so it was strategic how we started off with the dove season. That just ease into that, just like training. It's calm and collected and under control. And that's another question, and kind of spiraling a little bit out of control here off of this, but I think it's great stuff. A lot of people ask, why, even for upland dogs, why are all of our training situations set up in waterfowl type setups? Well, because in training, we're trying to keep everything under control. Right? And my, how do I want to say this? I believe that most, not yours, not you that are listening, but I think if you objectively look at a group hunt, if you have 10 dogs in the field at a time, which I think is crazy, but it happens a lot, I would say at least 8 or 9 of those dogs are out of control. And now it might be a under control, out of control. Like they're out of control, but they're under control enough that they'll come when they're called. But when they're out hunting, they're out of control, right? I mean, it's just kind of organized chaos. And you give a dog enough of that, and then all of a sudden you rein them back and try to make them be calm and steady. It just doesn't work well. And so oftentimes what I'll do with our clients, so we come in, we train their dogs for them. If they're going into a first season, they're like, all right, so I'm going to upland hunt, I'm going to waterfowl hunt. How do I do this? I really strongly encourage that whole first season that you just waterfowl hunt. Don't give the dog the option, to get into that kind of chaotic, go. You can always allow that later on. Rein them in, keep them under control, keep them quiet, because this is a big one for me. I truly believe no matter what breed it is, if you have a dog that is calm, that is quiet, and that is under control, everything else takes care of itself, as long as you have the natural ability, of course, to go with that. Calm, quiet, and under control. I've never heard of anyone that has complained about hunting with a dog that was calm, quiet, under control. I've never heard of anyone that was disappointed about being in the field with a dog that was that way. Now, you take a dog that is not calm, a lot of people get irritated. You get a dog that is not quiet or not under control, 100%. That dog is likely not going to be invited back. Right? Even if it goes and does a great retrieve or does something fantastic. So calm, quiet, and under control. And I just think how you do that is you start with, that control side, just like you did with Purdy.
Right.
You gave her that first full week of doing nothing but sitting at your side, shooting doves. She got feathers in her mouth. She got to pick them up. She got to hunt, right? Because you were hunting in some, some situations. It was really tough to locate those birds. But, you did the progression the right way.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And then, one other thing is that Purdy and I had such a memorable experience with her first flush. I mean, she was with a pheasant. She was working the field tremendously. I was so proud of her just with that. I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I was hoping for. If a bird gets up, awesome. But this is what it's about, was just watching her work, watching everything click with her. And then I could see her start to get birdie, and she flushes beautiful rooster. Went up. I had a shot. Luckily, I hit it. And she, from doing that steadiness work and that control work, she was able to stop herself, watch that rooster go down, mark it, have a beautiful retrieve there, right back to me, and brought it back to heel. And she did amazing. And I could not have been any more proud of her in that moment. And it was my most memorable 2021 hunting season memory.
That's
awesome. Amazing.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell everybody, it was certainly not lucky that she hit it. You're listening to one of the most competitive people that I know, to the point that one of my favorite stories that I have is we were at our previous house, and we'd just been on a shoot. We used to shoot sporting clays at Fairmount. Whitney was very good at it. And she had a very bad round one day. And I was actually on the phone with a client, and this is at 8, 9 in the morning, and all of a sudden I hear gunshots going off outside. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And so I walk out to the window, and I look out, and there's Whitney in the winter, bundled up with our electronic thrower that she's hitting the button, bringing her gun up, hitting the gun, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, so there's a little luck to do with it, but it's cool that you get to experience this. And the reason this is so cool is that I feel like too often our dogs are my dogs when we're in the field, right? Because I spend all summer training them. I compete with them. Then they're with me during hunting season. And you just don't get to experience those things that I do. And
Right.
I didn't realize it until you having Purdy and how special that was to you and watching you have those experiences, which is really neat. So let's talk about Bracken, because not everybody may know, but I've actually had a lot of questions come up on social about like, so what happened to Bracken? Where's Bracken? And some people may have missed him, but Whitney came to me earlier this year, and this is when she knew that that Purdy was going to miss some of the upland season due to her pregnancy and having puppies, and said, I need one of the boys. Which was like sticking a dagger in my heart, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you're right. I don't know who I want to give up, but you're right. And you picked Bracken.
I did.
And so one, just kind of recap why, and then two, what did you think about you having him this season?
Yeah. So the reason I picked Bracken, there were a number of reasons, and I love his personality. He just has such a fun personality. He is it probably pulls at my heartstrings a little much, but he has just this way with our kids that wherever the kids are, Bracken is, which then of course I totally gravitate towards that and eat that up. But it's also just his size is great. He's 65 pounds. He's our smallest sire, and when I think about traveling with him and Purdy, I kind of wanted two smaller dogs for me, but it also allows them to get into some cover that maybe, Bracken or that like Brock or Bud, that are a little taller, that they might not be able to get really deep down into that cover to flush a bird. And Bracken has great stamina. He can last for a really long time in the field. And he just has an infectious personality to be around. And so I decided to pick Mr. Bracken.
So were you, I think I know the answer to this, but were you happy with that decision?
Yeah.
As it kind of played out in the field? I
was really happy with it. And it was fun to watch him over the hunting season, the way he progressed, because I went into it expecting a little bit of, him wanting to stay close, just because he has had the waterfowl seasons with you, which, as we know, are very under control. And, you stay really tight to the person you're hunting with. And Bracken really had that in the beginning. To be honest, at first I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna get him to get out further in front of me, and how am I gonna get him to really start to understand this game versus the waterfowl game? But it was funny because as soon as he flushed the first bird, he kind of understood. But he stayed really under control with me, staying that 10 to 15 yards in front of me, quartering beautiful in front of me. He won't get too far out left. He won't get too far out right. And I really, really, really liked how through the waterfowl hunting with you, it carried into the upland field where he didn't want to get out of control. He stayed under control, and it was a really big team sport for him still with me. And so that was really fun to see how excited he would get, but still remember how to stay under control like he did with you for the waterfowl seasons.
So what's interesting to me about that, because I think if somebody just listens to that, the thought would be that there was no training that went into prep for pheasant season. That's not true. You went out with the check cord and you quartered him back and forth.
Right.
Yeah, and you did all this. So he was prepared for it. But I think what is interesting is that these dogs know when it's game time.
Yeah.
You can train over and over and over again, but these dogs know the difference. They know when that gun is getting loaded for the real time. They can sense the excitement. They can sense that something is just different, right?
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think that's one of the reasons that you see certain dogs excel in both the test game and field trials, because some dogs are just gamers. Like some dogs, I remember going to trials many times with dogs that all week were just knuckleheads. And I'm like, I don't even know why I'm wasting my time. And the second they came out of the trailer, it was like, it was like, what? Who is this? Just like completely different dog. And a lot of times that dog came home with a blue ribbon. It was incredible. Same thing with the hunting. It's these dogs know when it's game time. They know something's going on. And so what's interesting to me is that even though you had done the training, even though you'd put him on birds, even though you had the check cord and quarter back and forth and worked on that quartering part, he still had what it sounds like, because I wasn't there.
Right.
It sounds like an association with hunting, with sticking at my or your side in the situation and being at your side, which is really interesting.
Yep. And you got to remember, Bracken he's not a dominant male. So, he wants to be by you. He wants to make sure he's pleasing you, and he's not just going to go out there and hunt for himself. So it just took him time to understand, okay, this is what's going on. And with how much he's a team player, he probably sensed just that nervousness in myself, knowing, okay, this is our first hunting trip we're on. This is different cover than what we have typically maybe been used to running in. And so there was just a lot going through his mind, feeding off of my emotions as well.
So as it pertains to the hunting season, you said something kind of in your introduction that I wanted to hit on, because it's something a lot of people wouldn't know. You said that this was your first hunting season in a while that you could really go out there and hit it hard.
Yes.
Okay, so why is that? There's a good reason for this. Why is this?
So we have 2 little kids at home. Ava, she's now almost 3. Colton is coming up on 1.5 years. And so I have been a mom and really focused on our kids and our family life. And now that they're getting to be a little bit older, I'm able to kind of refocus back onto myself. I love hunting. And so now I can feel like I can take that time for myself without being selfish and leaving the kids with the grandparents for long periods of time. So, I've been kind of re-energized back into myself for hunting for myself with our dogs.
Well, and this is the first year in 4 years that you haven't either been pregnant or had a newborn kid at home too. And so I think that plays a big role into it. I mean, I remember it'd be almost 4 years ago, or probably 3.5 years ago now, that you had you were pregnant with Ava, and you were sitting in a tree stand at 6 months pregnant, trying to kill mature deer. And so it's interesting how life changes, right? I mean, you go through this, and all the time, we hear clients as far as go, I used to hunt, how many ever days a year. Now I only hunt, 3 to 4 because of the kids, or because of this, or because of that. And I get it now. I didn't get it before. I get it now. I still think that if things are extremely important in your life, like, you will dedicate time to it, and you will make time for it. But it does change. I mean, it really changes things. I know for me, I still hunt as much as I always did, but it's because it is part of our job. It's part of our business to have these dogs out there in the field working. I mean, we work all year for this. We go on hunts with a number of different companies. We need to get these dogs exposure. And so it's a big part of our business. So it's a necessity for me. Yeah. But I can tell you it's way harder for me now. It's way harder.
That's good.
It's way harder being away now when I've got, when I'll FaceTime the kids at night, and every night is, when are you coming home, Daddy? I'm like, oh gosh, I could just, it's different.
I do think one other thing though is that raising a young family, both of us want hunting to be a part of their lives. And it's a big deal. And for Ava to see her mom out hunting, and for them to see Josh and I even hunting together, I think that's how we want to raise our family. So it's important that we don't let that part of our lives go, and that they see that in front of them.
Could not have said it any better myself. That's big. And that's one of the things that, we try to do little things here at the house. So we're doing this interview in our living room. We're looking outside, and, we'll put corn out for the deer, so that every morning our ritual is we get up, we go to the window, and we all watch the deer. I mean, something so little is something that they're probably going to remember forever, and it's going to kind of be that stepping stone into the outdoors. And so, like, what we're looking at is, okay, this Ava, who's going to be 3 now, really loves watching the deer. I mean, loves it. Like, last night we were watching the deer, and 2 does stood up on their back legs, and we're kind of fighting with each other. And the laugh and squeal that she had when they did that was something that, I mean, I've never heard her laugh so hard. And so then, of course, that leads us to the conversations of, all right, so next year we're making sure we have, box blinds at our food plots that, we can bring the kids to. We can watch it's just like, it's crazy how it does it. It rejuvenates you because you see the cycle kind of coming through again, and so it's a fun thing. But I also think for us, the outdoor life has provided us with our business, really.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge part of our relationship. I mean, our first date we ever went on was we went fly fishing together, and so it's been a huge part of our life. And so as we we want to pass that down to our kids, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so quick break here. I want to thank Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck has the 5-star crash test rated kennels, both in the large and the intermediate size. A lot of people ask what size I use. I personally, for our dogs, use the intermediate. I do like the large size. It does have that extra room, but I tend to like to have less room for our dogs while they travel. I like them to just get in there, lay down, and be comfortable and calm. So that's me. But if you want the large, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, is the only 5-star crash test rated large kennel that's even out there. So both are the safest way that your dog can travel. I would highly recommend them for anyone looking for a kennel. And so check them out, www.luckyduck.com. And then Sitka. This is a relationship that has grown so tremendously over the last couple of years. And this is a brand that is not going to skimp. I mean, we're talking kind of a little secret. We're helping them test products, this season that they're looking at 2024 and 25. So they're putting these articles of clothing that is through the ringer. They're testing, they're tweaking, they're testing, they're tweaking, they're testing, they're tweaking. And I can tell you that is abnormal nowadays. Nowadays, it seems like companies want to develop, get it out, get that cash flow running as soon as possible, and we'll deal with the problems when they come up. Sitka holds themselves to a premium brand, and they do a fantastic job at it. And I'm so proud to be a part of their team. So go check them out, www.sitkagear.com. And for those of you that are wondering, are the waders worth it? 110 times over, yes. It is incredible. With the break in ice, with the abuse that I put them through this year, I would normally go through at least 2 pairs of waders a year. And the waders that I have in my garage right now just finished their 3rd season. They are fantastic. I would highly, highly recommend that. So. All right, Whit. So you said that you have some questions for me, which I'm really interested to hear what these are, because I don't know what these are, and so it'll be interesting. So kind of tell me where these questions came from, and then we can get into it.
Okay. Well, so I'm trying to prep for the spring. We have a lot of litters coming this spring, specifically between March and April. But as I was sending a lot of puppies home this...
Can I cut you off 1 second?
Yes.
Because this is such an interesting part of your business to me, is that it ebbs and flows with just Mother Nature.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And it's so interesting to me that people are like, sometimes they'll have like 3 litters at a time. And people are like, oh my gosh, like that's just, that's crazy. Well, yeah, if you were to be able to place them 1 month apart, then you probably would, right?
Right.
But it's just Mother Nature tends to, the way that you've said it multiple times, I think this is comical but so spot on, is that Mother Nature likes to remind you that she's in charge, which I think
100%.
I think is so funny, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And like when you say you have a bunch of litters coming in March, it's not that you've stacked all these that you want it to all be in March.
Right.
It just this is the way that these heat cycles are lining up.
Right. Exactly. And so, I mean, to be completely honest with all of you, my life does not get planned more than 60 days ahead. Because if a female comes into heat, then they're going to be due in 60 days, and I cannot do anything at that point because I need to be there for that mama, for those newborn puppies. And so it's a good thing that I am not a planner, because I can only plan 60 days ahead.
And I can tell you that as being a planner myself, it is a complete pain. We can't go on vacations. We can't plan big trips. I want to plan, like right now, I'm planning my whole 2022-23 hunting season, and I can't. Like I can't, if I want Whitney to go, which I want her to go on all of them, she can't tell me. It You're right. You are absolutely the right personality for this.
Mm-hmm.
I like structure.
Yep.
I like taking notes. I like being detailed. I like being planned, and
Mm-hmm.
it really it really bothers me.
We've learned that
So.
Josh is very type A. I'm very type B, and they say opposites attract. So there you go.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, Mother Nature totally runs this business, and when we have a really busy spring, it's because of those heat cycles. And when you think about it, if we were to pass on that heat cycle and wait for another 6 months, then you're breeding females. Like I ran into the issue with Purdy, that then you're breeding these females during hunting season, and then they miss those 60, 90 days out of the full year that you get for hunting. And so it's trying to...
And why 90? I know the answer, but...
What do you mean, why 90?
Like when you say 60 to 90 days...
Well, it depends on what people are hunting, what their hunting seasons
I
are.
see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. What I thought you were saying is that there's 60 days of the heat cycle, and then you have...
pregnancy.
Yeah, of the pregnancy, I'm sorry. And then you have another 3-4 weeks after the birthing that those mamas need to be with that litter. And so it's very time consuming when you think about the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is time consuming, and fortunate that we're fortunate to have people that are flexible and maybe don't mind missing the hunting season, or maybe they only hunt in those early season, those early hunts or something like that, so we can still have those later litters.
Right.
But you're right, that's probably the number one reason that our spring gets so busy.
Yeah, well, and just as a breeder, it is a lot more fun, and it's easier to have puppies in the spring and summer rather than in the dead cold of winter like it is here right now today. What, negative 20 this morning?
Yeah.
Without wind chill.
Yeah. Get me back to Arkansas.
So, anyways, going back to where we were earlier, I had a lot of puppies go home this fall. I was very fortunate to have females have puppies this fall, specifically puppies going home in October. But there were some questions that continued to come up, and I thought, since we're going to be going into puppy season here, it would be fun to just ask Josh some of these questions. So if you are getting a puppy, or if you have a puppy, you can kind of get his input on these common questions that I get asked at puppy pickup.
Interesting.
I know.
Well, what is interesting is that I think what we have found is that when someone has a question, other people have the same question. So, hopefully this does help, but I think this is interesting, especially if these are common questions that you've heard come up.
Yes, exactly. Okay, here we go.
Shoot.
Alrighty. Question 1. So, we do as much as we can to build these puppies' confidence before they go home. We have them outside of their pen a lot. We vacuum around them. They're listening to a blender, making mush. They're listening to us doing these dishes. They are outside. They're having people come and play with them. We build as much confidence in these puppies as we can in their first 7 to 8 weeks of life. But now these puppies are going home, and people want to know, how do you continue building that confidence at home with a young puppy?
So I think this is an interesting question. So let me back up for a second, because I'd say one of the reasons that we do make it a point to make a bunch of noise and desensitize them to this noise early on was that one of my great mentors, Rick Smith, he had talked to me, like we were training one day. He does a traveling seminar. We were at one of the traveling seminars, and I would always go to help him out because he's been such a great influence in my life. And so anytime that I had the chance, I'd go and help him out. And I remember him at the place that we were at. They had a puppy nursery, and it was dead quiet with like classical music playing, like nothing going on outside. It was very peaceful, right? And I made the comment to Rick, I was like, oh, that's a nice setup. And he's like, yeah, but think about it. If those puppies never hear noises for the first 8 weeks of their life, if they never have any disturbance, if everything is always just quiet and peaceful, what happens when they go out into the real world, right? Like there's a lot that you can desensitize a puppy to early on. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, this is a long time ago, right? But like at that point, I had never thought about that. And so that's why there's a point, like, of course, we want to be clean. Like you were like ultra clean. But we want to be, comfortable and want to be relaxing and all that stuff. But it is strategic that we are desensitizing dogs to noises and to the kind of hustle and bustle from that very first, age, because if they grow up that this is what life is, then all of a sudden when we do things like gun introduction, this isn't rocking their world, right? When that puppy goes home, they're not afraid of every little thing because this is so different from the normality that they've grown up with in the first 2 months of their life, right? Yeah. And so I think it's really interesting. Now, to carry that confidence home, the big thing is to put the puppy into confident building situations. And I know that sounds very elementary, but it's amazing how often people don't think about this. So you're going to bring the puppy to go meet other dogs. So you bring this puppy over to your friend's house who has a 6-year-old, German Shepherd, male, and that dog is like beating the snot out of the puppy, and the puppy's nervous and scared, like not confident building, right? Pick the right dog to do that with, right? Probably not at that other dog's home turf to where they're going to be defensive, right? Where you might have an issue that comes up. When introducing a puppy to water, like don't throw them in off the end of the dock. I know that sounds stupid, but you'd be surprised. Every single year I get a phone call. Every year. He's a Labrador. He should swim. I threw him off the end of the dock. Now he doesn't want to go back in. Well, duh. Right? You need to build the confidence. And so this is a handler. This is an owner situation. You need to be strategic in the situations you're putting your dog in to make sure they are going to be successful. How you build confidence is through success. Think about anything in your life. If you have gotten to be good at something, you are confident in it. If you are not good at something, you are going to be hesitant. You're going to be unsure. You're going to be guarded. Same thing with your dog. You need to build your confidence. But if you think about, again, any aspect of your life, how do you become successful? With most things, it is you have a strong leader showing you, paving the way for you. This is how you do this, whether this is a coach on a football team, whether this is a teacher in school, whether this is a boss at work. It is their job to make sure that, not everything is going to be roses and sunshine, but they're going to make sure you're equipped with the right tools, you're equipped with the right knowledge, and they're going to push you through to have that success and in turn build that confidence. That is your job and that is your role in that young puppy's life. Put them in confident building situations and build on that through success.
Great answer.
Thank you.
I'm just going to build off of that for 1 second.
Okay.
I think one of the easiest things to do is to take your puppy on a walk. Because you can literally take your puppy on a walk anywhere. You can pick what type of the terrain they're in. Okay, start out with grass. That's great. Now we're going to build into maybe a little bit more cover, a little bit of taller grass, and you're just going to let your puppy run. Okay, your puppy's young enough that they're not going to run away from you. They are going to want to stay close. But as they're walking with you, they're building their own confidence in all these different areas. You know what I mean? And then I always tell people, tell your puppy, good puppy, but let them have their focus on themselves rather than you coaching them along the whole way.
Yeah, there's no question that the best way to build a dog's confidence is to allow them to build their confidence on their own. And what I mean by that is that, you're not always there coddling them. You're not always there, going, good, right? Like, let the dog understand, what it is. We see this with bird and gun intro. When a dog is nervous about a bird or is unsure, we don't take them over to the bird and love on them like crazy and try to ease try to bring it into their mouth and put it in their mouth for them. No, we're going to let them make that decision. Because if they make that decision, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I did that. I can go do it again. Rather than if we spoon feed them with everything, they're going to want us to continue spoon feeding. That's why when you get dogs that are dependent, they are very reliant on the owner. They're unsure about the owner not being around. A lot of times it's through this, So yeah, building confidence, it's all about, again, putting them in the right situations. I think what's neat about the example you use is that anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need a big space. You don't need anything special. A walk is something very easy. But then again, be careful about that walk, right? Like you see another dog coming, you don't know this dog. Take the puppy out of the situation. Don't allow there to be, let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
Because if it goes poorly, it's likely not the bigger dog that's going to have a lifelong effect on this. It is your puppy, right? So just take yourself out of those situations.
Yep. Okay. Next one. Creating a puppy when at home. We know a lot of people work from home. So give us your thoughts on, crating a puppy at home.
So I think, first off, let's talk about the crate, because I think the only reason that someone wouldn't or doesn't use the crate is because they think that it is still a quote-unquote punishment tool. And I remember when I was growing up, that's what my mom and dad did. When the dogs did something bad, they went in the kennel. And that was the punishment. That was time out, if you will. And the dogs got to the point that they would like completely try to do everything they could to avoid, like you'd have to shove them in the kennel because they didn't want to go in there. All of our dogs, you open the door, you don't even have to say kennel. They're eagerly jumping in that kennel because they love it, right? And so I think you have to first get away from this whole punishment aspect. It's not a punishment. Quite frankly, it's the opposite. When you use this tool correctly and you desensitize the puppy early on, that this is a great thing. So what we do is we like to feed the puppy in there. We like to give them maybe a treat when they go in there, start to positively associate being in there. But what happens is the dogs get comfortable in there. And these puppies, they start to look at that as, okay, this is home. Mm-hmm. Why that's so important? Twofold. One, when you are traveling, there is no safer place for the dog to be than in the crate, period. I know people like to ride with the dog loose in the cab, but if you were to get into an accident, that dog is likely going to get hurt or worse being loose in the cab. Being in the crate, especially like a Lucky Duck crate that is a 5-star crash test rated kennel, is the safest place for them to be. Two is that while you travel, especially as a gun dog, the more you travel, the more unfamiliar places you are going to get into, whether that's a hotel room, whether that's a hunting lodge, whether that's what have you, right? As you go to unfamiliar places, the dog is naturally going to get anxious. So traveling causes stress in dogs, whether you realize it or not. You'll notice it through oftentimes loose stool. You might not see the dog physically be panting or physically stressed out, but you'll start to see that their stool is maybe not as firm. They'll start having, the squirts, if you will. They're just going to not be as normal, in that. It's showing you that it's stress. It's not an awful thing, right? But naturally there's going to be. Mm-hmm. If you start having them sleep in an area they don't know, and then they're on edge all night because they don't know where you are, where they are, you're building on that stress. If you have them comfortable in a crate and you get to a new destination, and then the dog, again, may not know where they are, may not know where you are, but this crate is home, and as long as I'm in this crate, I feel comfortable, is going to just help them be easy no matter where you are. It helps alleviate any kind of additional stress you could cause the dog, and it just quite frankly makes them feel more homey, you know. And so I think from the get-go, it's super, super easy to get a dog acclimated to this early on. Like, yes, there might be some vocalization at first, so you have to kind of just, either plug your ears or just remove yourself from the house so they can work through it. You don't reward them for barking to get out. Let them work through it. Let them calm down, realize everything's great. Life is just fine. And then just start positively associating that through treats and through feeding in the kennel. But the kennel's a tool that the biggest thing that I wish people could get over the thought that it's a punishment.
Right.
Because it is not.
Yeah. Or something really cool that you did down in Arkansas is that you used them as the dog's blinds. Yeah. And because they were comfortable with it, they had no problem acclimating to it.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting. So I'll go over that hunt real quick. So towards the end of the season, so again, we're breaking ice. I had to break ice in this field that we were hunting on the edge of. And through the course of the season, my dog vest, which helped them stay warm, or helped the dog stay warm, the Velcro up on the top, it just gets wore out. I mean, I put it through so much between the cold and the mud and the snow and the ice and the water, of course, and naturally just kind of wears out. Well, what happened was, if you can't think of the top of the dog's back where the Velcro's over and attaches to the other side of the vest, when this Velcro stopped holding, that tab would stick straight up in the air. So then when my dogs were going into their dog blinds, that tab or the neoprene would get hung up. And they would literally sit there and they'd try to fight to get in the blind. And then they, after 2-3 times trying to fight to get in there, they'd step out like, I must be doing something wrong. And then I'd have to get up and go over there and try to get their vest put down. And it just confused them, because they're not used to, like, why is there friction that I'm fighting to get in this blind? And so that day I had fought with that the whole day previous, and it was really obnoxious. But on the Lucky Duck kennels, we have the Sitka Optifade covers on them. That's the camel pattern. And so I was like, well, shoot, why can't I just use this? And what's great about those doors just being able to pop off, as easily as they do, I literally just put the kennels with the Optifade covers in the field, pop the door off, and I had myself a dog blind. And because the door was taller, those dogs were able to get in and out there very, very easily. And so it was, it's not something that I really ever intended to do or use, but it ended up being a great kind of double duty situation. And so, but you're right. If I had a dog that was hesitant or looked at that kennel as a punishment, now all of a sudden I'm going to fight that. And here's the other side of it too. A dog blind looks a lot like a kennel.
Yeah.
So if you start using that kennel as a negative, as a repercussion, as a punishment, your dog is likely not going to want to go in the blind either, because there's going to be the association because of the look and the feel and how it. I mean, they're just so similar. So, so I think there's a lot of points there. But yeah, the crate is just a phenomenal tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, here's our last one. How about bringing a puppy home with young kids?
So this is a really good one. I'm going to spiral a little bit off of this and hit this on a more broader note, because this is something I've talked a lot about here recently with people. When you have a dog in a family environment like this, with kids and everything else especially, your expectations need to change accordingly. Just how it is.
Yeah.
The reason being, I see it every day now with my kids, right? So up to this point, my dogs have been very routine in that when I say sit, it means sit. When you Whitney, say sit, it means sit. Now all of a sudden Ava says sit, and she doesn't mean it. And the dogs don't sit down. She says sit, sit, sit. They don't do it, and she walks away, and the dog's like, maybe I don't have to sit. And I do see a little bit of sloppiness in the field once in a great while, especially if they've been in the house for an extended period of time. So with us so we have a very small house. And we have a heated and AC garage that the dogs have their spot in, but we love to have the dogs around, so we'll rotate usually 2 to 3 at a time. We'll be in the house, and when I see that a dog has been in the house for a long period of time, and they're around that all the time, I do see sloppiness in the field, and that's with me training every day.
Right.
And so naturally, if you're at home and you don't train, this religiously, you are likely going to see even more of a situation. I just had a conversation with a guy that dropped off a dog yesterday that he struggled with. The dog doesn't listen to the kids. The dog doesn't listen to the kids. Well, how old are the kids? Well, one's 8, one's 10, and one's like 14. I'm like, okay, so do they follow through with commands? He's like, well, no, they're kids. I'm like, okay, so like you can't have the excuse for the kids and say it's not their fault. Well, it's not the dog's fault, right? We just talked about leadership, right? Like a dog needs a strong leader. If that leader is not going to be strong, they're not going to listen nor respect that leader. Why would they? You, if you're to critically look at yourself, you're not going to follow a weak leader either, right? Naturally, you want to follow a strong leader. And so if your kids are not going to be that strong leader and not going to follow through with the command that they ask, or that they give, not ask, that's where you're going to see situations come up. And here's just the reality that I've kind of come to grips with, is that in a family situation, you are maybe not even intentionally, but you are putting that dog into gray area situations. Now, I still think this is a great thing. I still think that this is better than having an outdoor kennel dog that you do nothing with, and you just nobody wants that robot. That's not why you get a dog, right? But your expectations need to be right. You can't expect that the dog is going to be as crisp and perfect when they've been through that, right? You need to look at yourself, right? Look at yourself and say, okay, I know that this is going on. So instead of going out and running a triple mark and 2 blinds today, maybe I'm going to do an obedience session and make sure that I sharpen things back up. Instead of trying to go run pattern blinds, I'm going to go back and just do some simple basic marks to make sure that I keep things crisp and under control. You can control that. I mean, you as an owner can control that. You as a trainer can control that. And you need to look at all the factors here, because when there's gray area, these dogs are going to push. It's very natural for them to do that. And so when you identify this, and I think the family life is fantastic, and I would say for probably 99% of us, one of the biggest reasons we have these dogs is to be a part of our family. And that is a huge, huge deal. But again, we just have to have the right mindset that we need to see what's going on, and then we need to know how to to combat it. And oftentimes it's as simple as more obedience sessions.
That sounds good. I'd say same thing with taking a puppy home too. They're going to follow the strongest leader, which is usually the parents, and then they play with the kids. It's
amazing how often when people drop a dog off for training, it's that the dog only listens to one person in the family. And it's not always the husband.
Right.
A lot of times it's the wife. And they say, "Wow, this dog doesn't listen to me for anything." Well, do you spend time with the dog? Well, no, I'm busy working. Well, there's your answer. It's like it's amazing how quick we are to make excuses for ourselves because it can't be our fault. But this dog is a product of its environment. It is incredible how true that is. Your dog is a product of their environment. When we see it, this is kind of silly, but it's so true. When we see someone that is dropping dog off at the kennel for the first time, we've never met them, we've never met the dog, and that, let's just use a guy in this case. Guy gets out of the car, comes to the door, is very fit, is energetic, is you can tell is like go, talks really fast, super excited. That dog comes out, is very in shape, is is looking all over the place, is jumpy, is coming in, is all over the place. Then the next person drops off, is maybe very overweight, very slow moving, very very calm in the way they talk. Naturally, they get the dog out. The dog tends to be probably overweight, dope-dee inside, and a very different personality, right? And it's incredible for us as breeders. You have puppies from the same litter that will go home and they will come back. And what's so cool, and I think what's such a blessing about our business, is that we get to know our clients on a very personal level, especially you, right? Because you're talking so much with them up to a puppy going home. Yeah. And because we get to know them, when the puppies come back in for training, it is comical how much that puppy reflects the family's, personality or energy level or ambition level, or it's incredible. And again, we have from the same litters across the board. These dogs are products of their environment. 100%. And so it's really interesting how true that is. And so as you think about that, if you're going to be bringing a new puppy home, think about the environment which you're going to create for the dog. What kind of a dog do you want, right? And then from there, create the environment to match.
Yep. That sounds great. That's all I had for you.
So that's all, huh?
That is it.
That's awesome. Well, what I'm going to be doing now is I'm actually going to be leaving probably in like the next half hour. I'm going to be going to speak at the Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It sounds like there's a wicked snowstorm I'm going to drive through. So we'll see how far I get or if I make it. But this is a show that I've spoken at for I want to say the last probably 7-8 years. I think one for sure was missed in there with COVID.
Right.
And so anyway, it's a neat show. It's a long ways away, but it is a neat show with a lot of great people at it. So if you're going to be around, make sure you go check out. Come over and say hi at the Great American Outdoor Show, and and then we'll come back and we'll be going into Pheasant Fest, and we'll have another number of different shows, and we'll be training season, which I'm super excited about. So hope you guys have a great week. Hope you guys weather the cold. If you're in the cold, if you're in the warm, I'm extremely envious of you, especially right now. And thank you, Whitney, for spending the time with us today. I know sometimes it's hard to carve time out of the busy schedule, but we really appreciate it.
It's fun. I always enjoy it.
Yeah. All right, you guys, have a great week. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Yukonuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.